Hi, I'm Jeannie, and it's time for Wake Up. If you have not become a Christian, please look at the prayer below and say it. Becoming a Christian doesn't mean you're perfect or your life suddenly works out well. It means that you're forgiven. You have become one with the family of God. And with that, you have other Christians who are there to help you out. Christians are like a family. The Christian bond is supposed to be stronger than a family. And we're called to help one another. So if you want to become a Christian and become part of the family of God, then say the prayer below. Ask God to forgive you of your sins. And then find a good church or family or Bible-believing group of people who can baptize you, because baptism is important as well. Now we're in chapter 8 of Matthew. And chapter 8 and 9 of Matthew are all about Jesus' miracles. It's one miracle after another. Boom, 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 boom. These miracles show Jesus' power and authority over humans, diseases, and nature. Jesus healed some of society's most marginalized people, and his miracles confirm Jesus' message, and it showed the reality of the eschatological situation. Now, that's a big word that simply means the reality of death and the finality of death, what actually happens once you're dead, the soul of humankind. His miracles also showed God's compassion, because Jesus healed the most marginalized of society at the time, showed how much God really loves us all, and not just the Jews, and not just certain people, but all of us. And Jesus was willing to make risks and go into places and do things that no other human was going to be willing to do. And by the way, Matthew wrote in groups or topics, while other gospel writers wrote linearly, or as things happen in order. So even though these things happen and you can verify them in other gospels, it may not be necessarily the same order. Starting in Matthew 8. When Jesus came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said. "Be clean." Immediately he was cleansed of leprosy. Then Jesus said to him, "See that you don't tell anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer the gift Moses commanded, a testimony to them." Some things to point out here with this little story. First off, the leper approached Jesus, which is a big deal because they're supposed to be kept on the outskirts. And Jesus allowed him to come to him and touch him. So for him to approach Jesus, someone who was considered godly, someone who was considered having authority from God, this was like theologically and socially inappropriate in that time. First off, many people during that time felt like God gave people the disease of leprosy. They felt like it was a curse from God. And there is good reasoning for that, because in 2 Chronicles 26:16 through 23, King Uzziah entered the temple and offered up incense on the incense altar, which was very bad for him to do, because only the priests had the authority to do this. And so Azariah, the priest of the time, told him that it wasn't proper. And King Uzziah got very angry, and while he still had the incense burner in his hand, he started yelling at the priests. And as he started yelling, a skin disease started happening right before their eyes. It started on his face. And so leprosy started appearing on his right forehead right away. And this made everybody realize that God had given him that disease because, one, he did something he wasn't supposed to do, and two, he started yelling at the priest whenever they reprimanded him for that. So King Uzziah ended up having to live the rest of his life in isolation. Now, when the leper approached Jesus, it's important to understand that he knew Jesus could heal him. He didn't say, "Can you heal me? Is it possible for you to heal me?" He says, "You can heal me if you are willing." So he just needed to find out if Jesus was willing to heal him. And Jesus said, "Yes, I am willing to heal you." So then Jesus did something outrageous. Jesus did something no one else of the time would do. He touched the leper. He touched him. That's crazy. But he touched them. He touched him and he healed him. Just to understand a little bit about leprosy. Leprosy is a disease that actually starts deep into the bones and in the joints. And as it progresses, you start to see it on the outside, on the skin. And pretty much, it is a disease that just rots your body away from the inside out. And it's not uncommon for lepers to lose parts of their body, like their nose will fall off, or their ears, or their hands, or other parts of their body may just fall off. It's a very painful way to die, and it's a very slow way to die. And it can take up to 50 years to progress until death. Even though these guys had festering sores and rotting flesh, Jesus was still willing to touch him and heal him. And by touching him and healing him, Jesus broke the Jewish traditions and he showed his power and his authority over humans, nature, illness and disease, and even the law of the Jews. And so then Jesus tells them, "Don't tell anyone about this." But why would he tell them not to tell anybody by this? He said that, "Don't tell anyone about this, but just go and get what you need to give the offering that Moses said that you needed to offer in order to be completely cleansed." So they were healed and cleansed already by the touch of Jesus, but they are still ceremonially not cleansed according to the Jewish law. And Jesus is telling them that they needed to go ahead and do the whole thing that Moses had set up in order for them to be ceremonially cleansed. And now this is probably the very first time ever anyone had brought the offering that Moses said you had to bring in order to show that you are ceremonially cleansed of leprosy. When these lepers go into the Jewish synagogue with their gift and their offering to be sacrificed on the altar, they are proving that Jesus has the power and authority. They are proving it because they will be the only ones who've ever been able to offer up that gift. The next miracle was with the centurion. Now, I just want to point out that centurions and lepers were equally despised and ostracized by the Jewish people. Centurions, because they represented the law, they represented the Romans overtaking their territory. And also, they protected the tax collectors and so forth and so on. So they were seen as unclean. They were Gentiles, and they were seen as unclean, and they were seen as enemies. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. "Lord," he said, "my servant lies at home paralyzed, suffering terribly." Jesus said to him, "I will come and heal him." The centurion replied, "Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes. I tell that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and it is done." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, "Truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown out into darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Then Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, let it be done just as you believed it would." And his servant was healed at that moment. So, something that we know about the centurion is that he cares deeply about his servant. And Jesus tells him, "I will come and heal him." If you notice, the centurion didn't ask him that. The centurion just told him of the situation. "Lord, my servant lies paralyzed, suffering terribly." Jesus volunteered to go with him, which is, again, radical for any Jewish person to be willing to go into the home of a Gentile, let alone a centurion. But Jesus said, "I will come and heal him." "Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word and he will be healed." He said, just say the word. He didn't demand any type of ritual or magical formula or even Jesus' physical presence. The Greek and Jewish healers of the time healed through chants and rituals and even some magic. But Jesus didn't need to do any rituals or any chants or any magical things. He used the spoken word, or he used his literal touch, his physical touch. And by Jesus healing in this way, it showed that he had a unique connection to creation. It showed his personal authority, and it showed his differences from healers of that day. So then Jesus goes on to tell us that he has never found anyone with so much faith in all of Israel. Nobody has had more faith than this particular centurion. And he was amazed at that. But he also said that many people are going to come from the east and the west to take their place at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. So with this, he's saying that many people are going to come from the east and the west. That means that people who are not Jewish are going to be at the table with him, with Jacob and Isaac and Abraham, way before the people who were Jewish are going to be there. So this is Jesus indicating way before his death and resurrection, way before Paul came and did his ministry amongst mostly the Gentiles. Jesus is telling us that many will come and take their place at the table with him, along with Isaac, Jacob, and Abraham, but few Jewish people really are. And he said that the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So Jesus is telling us that the Jewish people, most of them, are not going to be in heaven with us, sitting at the banquet table at the end of times. And he's telling us that it's going to be mostly Gentiles that are going to be there, because the Jews have over and over and over again rejected him. That's not to say that no Jew will be there. There will be Jews there, but it's going to be a lot of us Gentiles. And Jesus tells him, "Go, let it be done just as you have said." And at that moment, the centurion's servant was healed. So we see that just the word, you don't even have to have the person around. You just ask Jesus and he will heal them. And you know that Jesus still heals today. It's just that we of little faith don't believe that he will heal, or we don't expect him to heal. We might expect him to help us a little bit this way, a little bit that way, but our actual belief in his ability to heal is very limited. I say that about myself too, because I know that I don't have the type of faith that the apostles had during that time. I know not many of us do, and not many of us claim the authority that Jesus has given us as children of God, as Christians. Next time, we'll go ahead and look at some of his other miracles in chapter 8. Right now, it's time for current events. Last year, 3 people who were paralyzed for life started learning to walk again. It's great. Isn't that great? It really is fantastic. And they did so with this implant in the neck that stimulated the spinal cord. And of course, I am not a scientist in the least, but these people were able to walk again. What a miracle. This is really great. Oh, I'm going to read from the BBC News. An electrical device inserted around the men's spines boosted signals from their brains to their legs, and it also helped damaged nerves in the spinal cord regrow. The researchers hope that this unexpected bonus will enable paralyzed people ultimately to regain independent movement. The first person who was treated was a 30-year-old Swissman named David Mazie, and he suffered a severe spinal injury 7 years ago in a sporting accident. The doctors didn't think David would ever walk again, but thanks to the electrical implant, he can walk more than half a mile when he has the implant turned on. Now, he still has some difficulties. He still has to use a walker, and he's still having difficulty, but the stimulation of his spinal cord nerves gives people hope that he may eventually be able to walk again on his own without this. That is so fantastic. But let's move on to Elon Musk. Elon Musk has an AI interface that goes in your brain and down your back. And this Neuralink goes in your brain and down your back, and it allows people to control their body parts with these devices with their minds. So just like your brain already, when you're perfectly intact, you use your brain to control your movements, your walking, your feet, everything. This allows your brain to control those things. It's like an AI, an artificial intelligence that attaches itself to your brain and goes down your back. So I'm going to read from this QZ.com, Brains with Machines. Neuralink claims it has innovative flexible threads which are gentle on the brain and may make it possible to transfer a higher volume of data between the mind and machines. Each thread can be individually inserted into the brain with micron precision for avoidance of surface vasculature and targeting specific brain regions. The electrode array is packaged into a small implantable device that contains custom chips for low power on board amplification and digitization, the paper states. The Neuralink's approach to BMI has unprecedented packaging density and scalability in a clinically relevant package. Right now, to get one of these Neuralinks, it will cost you $7.6 billion. It could reach $12 billion by 2020. And Musk insists that people have nothing to fear. It's not going to be suddenly Neuralink will have this neural lace and start taking over people's brains, Musk said, but rather he hopes Neuralink will help humans to achieve a symbiosis with artificial intelligence. So it is fantastic that it's possible that this Neuralink could actually cause people who are disabled to be abled. That people who could never walk or who were totally paralyzed could actually learn to walk again, learn to use their limbs and become mobile and become independent again. I can't even imagine what it must be like to be trapped in your body in such a way. So that's really, really good. But here's the fear. The fear is that this Neuralink is used in people who don't have disabilities. And it's just another step in that direction. So if you use this Neuralink, perhaps you can be stronger or better than you ever were before. So it's a new technology, and we just need to be wary of any new technology that wants to insert artificial intelligence into your brain. To me, that's a very dangerous thing to start up. And we need to wake up because it's starting to happen. And next thing you know, 5-10 years from now, everybody's going to be wanting to have a Neuralink so that they can be smarter and be connected to machines and computers and be smart and active and everything else. Anyway, wake up.